Hey, this is Shah from the podcast Thrive Not Survive After Abuse. Yesterday we talked a little bit about the beginner syndrome, and I put it a little bit bluntly and say that everyone sucks in the beginning, and that's actually a really good that's actually a really good thing, right? Most of the things that we take on and are remotely interesting, we will simply not be good at. Um, when we start doing it because otherwise everyone would do it, and we only get good at it by doing it a lot of time. So that means actually that in the beginning or the first time that you do it, the second time, third time, and so on, you actually pretty suck at what you're doing, and that's a good thing. The reason why one of the reasons actually why we find that so hard is that we sometimes cannot accept, being uncomfortable with not being good at something, and some people actually don't want to go through that. If you think about Edison, I think they said he failed about maybe 1,000 times before he eventually had a working light bulb, right? And hence now, if we come up with a good idea, we say, "Hey, a light bulb," right? But he literally, failed at least 1,000 times, and I think you can find the real number on Google, but doesn't matter so much. What matters is his approach and um, his mentality when he failed. So when he failed, he said, I am one step closer to find the result. And at some point in time, people actually started to say to him, it's simply impossible. Well, if he would have known Nelson Mandela already, because Nelson Mandela says, it's always impossible until it's done. So I think Nelson Mandela and Alpha Edison, if they would have lived in the same era, they would have been good friends because they had more or less the same type of mentality that failing is just part of getting really good at something or making something that is impossible possible. Now there could be some. So I was a little bit quick with that podcast. I think it's good, but some people reacted to me and say, maybe it's not that easy. Well, that's actually the whole thing that I was talking about. But I know what you guys mean, right? If you are a person that are either a perfectionist or for what kind of reason you have an incredible fear of failing, um, then beginning something new might be really hard for you, right? So here are a couple of things why people are afraid of failing, right? Often it is because they are worried what other people think about them, right? And that could be because, they are afraid to disappoint them, or they might think, oh, if I fail, they might lose interest in me, stuff like that. And so what you do is you put the bar really high for yourself, because most of the time other people, they have equally problem by starting something new because of the same reason, or they really understand actually, like I do, that everything that you do in the beginning is actually pretty normal, that you actually are not so good at it. And actually, even if you think that you're good at it, you don't know how good you can become at it if you keep going at it. Another thing is why people worry about failing is that they might have the feeling, if I fail, then I get the feeling that I'm not good enough, that I'm maybe not smart enough, that I'm maybe not capable of enough. So this inner voice that I talked about a few days ago, it's going on overtime, because it's keep talking to you. See, you suck at it. You don't feel it. You have to counterattack that inner voice with saying, if there are people around me that I disappoint because I fail in the beginning, maybe those are not the right people to hang out with. If there are people around me that lose interest in me because I'm not immediately good at something new that I undertake, maybe those are not the people that are the right persons to be hanging out with me. If I get some voices in my head that I think I'm not smart enough, maybe I should rethink that. Maybe listen to the podcast of yesterday and get thinking, it's really really good to fail in the beginning, because that means that I'm at least trying and doing that. And I remember at the very very beginning of my dance career, um, I was at at well, we call it the Dutch Dance Sport Academy, and I came in there. I had literally no clue. I did not know any name in that whole dance industry. I knew, of course, my Dutch, colleague dancers, and I looked up to them. I had no clue where they were standing in the international ranking, but that Dutch Dance Sport Academy was actually pretty famous, but that I didn't even know either. And there were quite a few really top international dancers as well. And here was the remarkable thing. I remember that my teacher asked me, what is so characteristic about a cha-cha-cha? Now, I'm not going to give you a dance lesson here, but my answer was, because I was just reading about it, not that I could do it, I said my answer was, cha-cha-cha is, a strong character of a cha-cha-cha is the quick footwork. And he said, wow, that's really good, Sean. Why don't you and your partner demonstrate that to us? So he put on a cha-cha-cha. Um, we were dancing, our heart out, and I saw all these Dutch colleagues. They were definitely dancing higher than me, and in the grand scheme of things, I can see now they were just a little bit better than me, not even much. But I was looking up at them, and their faces were like, "Wow, those people are really bad." And you know why? Because my hands were going, left to right. I couldn't keep them still, and so my teacher asked me, asked the other group, saying, "Hey, what did you guys see?" Because because he said, you have to move your feet really quick, and they said the only thing we saw was my hands. And now I'm a pretty confident person. I always felt, I'm here to learn and what's not, but I felt, their faces looking at me and saying, "Well, this guy cannot dance." And those are the people that were, they have a judgment on you. It's an academy. We're there to learn, and so if my teacher at that time would not say the following, I might have been completely discouraged to pursue a dance career. He said, everyone who has now this face judging these two new dancers because they don't dance so well, and we didn't, by the way. He said they can just pack their bags and leave right now. Right now, he said, because those people have no place in here. Because those people are maybe bad dancers, but they are here in the middle of the floor so that we can learn from them. And you can also learn from someone that is not that good. And okay, my gosh, that is interesting. You can learn from someone who's actually not so good yet. You can learn from someone's mistake. So if other people can learn from my mistake, can you imagine what I can learn from my own mistakes? So I became more confident. The other thing that I saw is that actually the real top dancers, from which I did not know the name at the time, by the way, actually looked with much interest. They were giving tips why they believed, so I started to say, okay, the people who are not so confident and proficient themselves, they look down upon the people that actually make failures in the beginning. The people who actually reach a certain level of quality, they would never do that. They understand the process that you have to make those mistakes before you can reach anything. And I'm sure, and if you can think about it in your own trade, you can come up with your own examples because it's probably universal truth what I just said, right? So people who look down at you because you make mistakes in the beginning, or if you make mistakes ever, I don't think those are the people that you want to hang out with. Does that make sense? Uh, Now, what are the signs that you may be too afraid of making mistakes? Now, one of the common things we sometimes hear is that before we undertake something, we already say, "Oh yeah, don't expect too much because I'm not so strong and so good." I used to do that a lot, by the way. So yesterday I showed to my best friend, I showed just a little video of a dance that I'm working on, and I was almost inclined to say, "Oh yeah, no, don't look at it because we're not so good yet." Well, she could see that herself, right? I don't need to tell that. Doesn't mean that's a judgment on the quality. You could see for what it is. But if we do that to ourselves, do you see? You don't give kudos to the work that you put in there. That it's not the end product that you have in mind. That's perfectly fine, right? So we do that to ourselves. We put ourselves down. Try not to do that. And another thing that is very common, I have that a little bit less, I must say, but I see some people do before they undertake something, and they always want to be really good immediately. They start to think that they have to perfect, so they do a lot of preparation, read it over again, maybe, but they're not really doing it, right? To become really good at it and have less failures, just keep doing it, keep doing it. So I came up with a quote today that might help you, right? If you make a mistake, and if that's in the beginning process that you're in, and you make a mistake and you stop, then you actually fall backwards, right? So you fall backwards. So if you fail and you stop, you fall backwards. But if you fail and you keep going, you keep falling forward, right? So it's a principle. You fall forward in life. Everyone stumbles, everyone make the mistake. There's no one. We always think that the other person is better, but they think the same of you. Keep making your mistakes and keep falling forward is my motto of today. And that is also the end of this podcast. So anyhow, that was a little continuation of the podcast of yesterday about the beginner syndrome. I will be back here tomorrow. As always, on Saturday, we do an Instagram Live. To give you a little heads up, I might find another day and a time for that, but tomorrow it's still at 10 o'clock in the morning, Dallas time, which is about 5 p.m. in Europe, and those are the, and everything in between, so to speak. So I hope to hear you back tomorrow with another episode of the podcast Thrive Not Survive After Abuse. This was Jean, and I'll hear you tomorrow. Bye bye.